Welcome to the Monday Night Roundtable. Welcome.
Good evening. I am Alfred Hitchcock, and I'm about to present you with one of the finest dramas our writers could find.
Well, go ahead, Hitchcock.
That's all I have to say. I have some business stage left that I have to undertake.
Such as pursuing Tippy Hedron?
That's for the birds.
Man, am I dating myself?
Really?
Well, I hope Malpal's going to join us here. We'll just go ahead and launch and see what happens here.
Well, as they say down in the valley, let's soldier on.
Let's soldier on. Oh, well, let's talk about today's game between Atlanta and the Milwaukee Brewers. How about Jock Peterson? 3 for 3, three pinch hit appearances, 2 home runs and a single.
As you so bluntly stated to me in a private conversation, I knew you've always loved this player. When he was migrating from Albuquerque or wherever the minor league team was, he was touted as highly by all the experts as Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto, Dante Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And his career has cascaded from occasional flashes of power brilliance to more regular slips in continuity and difficulty to maintain a sufficient batting average to keep his place in the lineup. But he has a powerful bat and always has.
He has sort of morphed into the dark recesses of mediocrity. That may be too strong a word, because he does have flashes. But basically, today, in today's game, a player that hits 25 to 30 dingers and hits 250 or 260 and has no speed and is not exactly a defensive stalwart. I hate to say they're a dime a dozen, but they might be $1 a dozen. They're not really all that hard to find anymore, are they?
He did have 37 home runs for the Dodgers, playing in what I would consider 100 games in 2018 or 2017 or 2018. But he's never been able to. His problem is his swing through rate has been too high.
Yeah, that's right. And the Braves do they look to you like they're headed to the NLCS?
They do. I think what's happened in that playoff series, the Braves, bless you, at ball 4. The Braves and ball 5. Bless you. The Braves have exploited their superior and more reliable hitting and run production in games that otherwise left their starters with the Milwaukee Brewers presumably superior to frontline starters, and Peralta number 3 have pitched well enough to be competitive. Fried pitched well. Anderson pitched well, and Martin pitched well. So yeah, I gotta favor the Braves to make the championship series at this point. Are they now ahead of Milwaukee 2-1? I think they are. You're going to sneeze again. I'll filibuster until you get whatever that is. You need to have some.
Oh,
Yeah, bring some knowledge to your meeting, to your broadcast, your podcast.
for game 4 of the Brewers and the Braves for both teams. Oh man, I don't know what's going on. For both teams, the pitchers showed to be determined.
Well, I would guess in this case, they don't want to start Woodruff on 3 days rest on the Milwaukee end and on the Atlanta end. The starting rotation, which has been somewhat questionable, even with reasonably reliable performances from the top 3, the rotation doesn't have a really solid. They use Smiley quite a bit this year. I don't think that the Braves want to start Smiley or some other pitcher in such a critical game. So I think the reason there are no pitchers listed is not that they're trying to conceal it. Maybe they just don't know yet.
Yeah.
And Milwaukee has the same problem. I predict Milwaukee will start the left-hander who was traded over there from San Diego. He will throw some decent games and then not so good. His name is I'm drawing.
Eric Lauer.
Eric, if they don't go back to Woodruff, then the starter will probably be Lauer. Game four, maybe hitter's choice. Let me just quickly go to something that happened a few minutes ago in the Tampa Bay Boston game. Boston has surprised me somewhat with its resilience. Eduardo Rodriguez, who did not have a stellar year at all, has started in a very strong and dominating way against Tampa. But just before we came on the air, a few minutes before we came on the air, I don't know, I'll bet you Andrew knows this, or Lenny, because that's hardly anything they miss. Rodriguez threw 17 pitches to Austin Meadows before he struck him out. 17. You want to talk about a guy's contribution if he's not hitting it out? No, he struck out. But if you want to talk about his contribution, it would be in running up the opposition pitcher's pitch count. 17 pitches in the third inning just to one hitter.
Driving up the opposing pitcher's pitch count it's an underappreciated contribution. It's a tremendous contribution, even if you make it out.
Well, we know who was one of the best ever at that was a player in San Diego by the name of Tony Gwynn.
Yeah, that's right. Now, how about the Dodgers and the Giants? Who do you like tonight in that matchup? Alec Wood versus Max Scherzer.
It all depends on one imponderable, which is, are we going to see the Max Scherzer who came over to the Giants at the end of June?
You mean to the Dodgers?
And in games he
pitched.
You
mean to the Dodgers.
I mean the Dodgers. And in games he pitched, they were 11-0, although he had a couple of rough starts toward the end of the season or the last week of the season. And he had an uneven start. He had an uneven start in the game against the play-in game against the Cardinals because his command, particularly on his slider, his command was off and he was getting pitches. He was getting pitches up in the hitting zone way too much. That could be not a matter of nerves or butterflies. This doesn't fit this Scherzer profile, but it could be a matter of a 37-year-old man who's pitched 200 innings and has some arm weariness. So to answer your question, Alex Wood has pitched as well as the Giants could hope to expect. And the manager, Gabe Kapler, said as much today, how happy they were with Alex Wood, because he typically gives them 5 or 6 strong innings. They don't get much more than that, weren't getting more than that out of Cueto when he was starting, and they don't get much more out of that from DeSclafani. My prediction is, if Scherzer is back on the normal Scherzer painting the corners and throwing in the mid 90s to 97 or so tonight on their home field, then they've got to be the favorite.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. Do you see Wood is a left-hander or a right-hander?
He's a herky-jerky left-hander. Let me give you a piece of Dodger history. The Dodgers historically have had great difficulty. It seems to be a team personality trait dating way back to the days in Brooklyn. I remember a guy with the Cardinals named Larry Jaster in the early 1980s who won 8 and lost 14, who was a herky-jerky left-hander and threw a lot of junk up at the plate. And Jaster was 8 and 14, but 5 and 0 against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it could be a little dicey tonight. Alex Wood could be, if he's got good command, could be. Alex Wood could channel his inner Blake Snell, another pitcher the Dodgers cannot hit. In that event tonight, you might see a game 1-1 in the 9th inning with everything up to the late innings.
Yeah, that's right. Alec Wood's ERA
3.68, 3.86.
It's 4.20 away from Oracle.
Oh, away from Oracle. But I think he did have a 10-4 record, did he not?
He had a 10-4 record overall. He had a 3.3 ERA and a 1.18 whip with 152 strikeouts. That's about as solid as you can get. And we both know the injury history for Alec Wood, but he stayed pretty much in the. I don't remember him missing much time this year. Do you?
No, he has had an injury history. I would say the best year of his career he had with Los Angeles, 2018, was 16-3 in their starting rotation. He came up with the Atlanta Braves, and there was a little bit of people in Atlanta called him, and the press corps called him the left-handed bird, meaning the left-handed Mark Fidrich. He of the Detroit Tigers in the early 1980s. He had a
herky-jerky motion.
A herky. Let's do the herky, jerk. Let's throw the ball at every little place. Guy.
Okay. Moving on to the American League, Boston has moved out to a 5-0 lead over Tampa. Is it curtains?
Let me say this about the Red Sox, the biggest surprise to me. Let me just pick one pitcher out of the hat.
Is it curtains for Tampa is what I meant to ask.
Yeah. I think Boston might have an upset in this playoff series. Let me take a guy, a former Washington National. They've had so many pitchers they've traded away. Only a couple have really come back to burn them. But here's a guy with good stuff. Nick Pivetta came in a critical situation. Good evening, Malpal.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. I didn't get a link, so I'm scrambling a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, we see you.
Malpal,
let me just finish this thought. They've got a guy like Hulk who's shown up strong in the bullpen when they had a very weak bullpen. And Nick Pivetta came in the other night, 4 innings, 1 hit, no runs, and 7 strikeouts. 2 days earlier, 2 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 3 strikeouts. Nick Pivetta was in the starting rotation had some weaknesses, and they moved him to the bullpen, but they hadn't really put him in leverage situations. So yeah, I think the Red Sox, for some reason or other, even Rodriguez, who has been painfully inconsistent this year, has pitched pretty well tonight. I don't think they scored on him yet.
Malpal, we're so glad you're here. I could have sent that to you. It's in the Facebook Messenger. We have a page for the Roundtable, so I'll try to send that to you.
Yeah, add me in that, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's my bad. I should have gone. I should have preempted. I got it. I should have just. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Let me get your opinion on the Braves versus the Brewers and the Dodgers and Giants. Since you just came into the room, we were just discussing them. What's your comments? What's your observations on the Braves versus Brewers series? Do the Brewers, are they going to make it back, or are they in trouble? They are in trouble. I mean, that's
I think their lack of punch is kind of showing up now, or not showing up. Their hitting is just weak, and that's been they've been gullible. They've been I figured that could trouble them against if the Braves got some good pitching. So I don't know who's going the next game. I haven't really researched that, but we're kind of down to like crappy pitchers now, right? Where the Braves
you're down. Merle said it could be Eric Lauer, who has pitched, I think, exceedingly well.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be mistaken for Burns or Woodruff, okay?
Or even Peralta, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And then for the Braves, we were talking about who do they have left? They have Inoa. They have Drew Smiley. But Merle and I are thinking they just might roll Charlie Morton back out there again.
May I make a more secular statement about the indications for postseason baseball?
Sure.
Hey, Merrill.
Yes.
Can I get you to just reconnect, because the sound is really choppy and I want to be able to hear you. So if you could just like refresh your browser or your screen or close out some windows, that would be great.
Should I sign off and sign back in?
Please.
All right. Can I just say one?
All right, we'll be with you. Malpal and I'll talk in the meantime. Malpal, we were talking about Jock Peterson. You know, Jock Peterson had a pedigree when he came up.
He was highly touted, 7, 8 years ago.
Wasn't he like, when he came up, wasn't he treated like, what the hell was that guy with Tampa that everybody went crazy about? What was that kid's name? He never did amount to much. His brother played, I've drawn a blank. But Peterson was a highly touted player.
He was.
And he's never.
He was a big power speed guy. And I thought it was funny. I think it was yesterday. He got on base and then they pinch ran for him. I go, so much for the speed.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to the speed. Well, what do you think about the Dodgers tonight? You're out there on the West Coast. At least you can see them. I got to stay up to 2 a.m, and I'm an old man. I don't do that anymore. But I mean, it starts at what, 6:45 your time, right?
6:45, and then you go 4 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah.
You might as well just hang up, stay up, and listen to Lenny's podcast tomorrow.
Well, there you go. I don't know if you ever listened to John Hanson. He's a football guru, on XM Radio. Yeah, every morning he's at the Dodger game tonight. Oh. He's got a nice little gig. He flies from the Philadelphia suburbs every Friday out to Los Angeles, and he goes to DirecTV office, which is, I believe, in El Segundo. He does the fantasy show on DirecTV every Sunday for like 6 hours while the games are being played. And then he's hanging around today to go to the Dodger game. I wouldn't mind being out there at Dodger Stadium tonight. I'll tell you that.
Okay, Look, can I ask you, is the sound a little better now?
Yeah. Yeah. You don't look
I-
any better.
Well, I can't help that. You know what?
I'm just
You know what?
bragging.
You can swab a rouge onto a pig's face, but it's still a pig.
Well, we're not-
I wanted to make a more secular baseball world statement. But we're talking about secondhand fiddles like Eric Lauer and some of these people they're having to turn to, because you can't really pitch starting pitchers, most of them, without the proper rest. One of the many, many changing phenomena of Major League Baseball is that it's very difficult, virtually impossible, to find a team with a starting rotation that is what I would say reliable, stalwart starting rotation ever in baseball now that extends beyond the first three pitchers. In these playoff series, it's difficult to manage that as compressed as the schedule is. Interestingly enough, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all be happy. But the Dodgers, in another scenario, if Bauer doesn't get himself in a wrangle, and if Kershaw's back doesn't go bad and doesn't get left forearm pain, there is a single team in baseball that conceivably, and I know this is only hypothetical because they're not there and it doesn't matter, but you can conceivably have gone to the postseason with the Dodgers with a rotation of Kershaw, Scherzer, Bauer, Urias, and Buehler. That would be the kind of rotation that once was more commonplace in the big leagues.
Okay. So who wins tonight, Mal Pal, the Giants or the Dodgers?
Well, Dodgers got Scherzer going, right? Is that my understanding? The Giants guy, is it Alex Wood?
Yep.
So Dodgers at home with Scherzer. I mean, I'm thinking Scherzer had his bad game. And it wasn't even that bad. He was a little wild, and
he didn't have command over his changeup at all.
Right.
It's amazing because he only gave up 1 run in 4 innings, but he looked like he had miserable command.
Yeah, he threw a lot of pitches. So,
Mel, can I kick in something? This is how Scherzer pitched Game 7 of the World Series in 2019. I don't know how he managed to fight his way through 5 innings against a good hitting team like Houston when he was having the kind of command issues we saw the other night, but he did.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen. But if I had to lay down a few bucks, I'm guessing Scherzer is one of the greats, and I think he puts it together. I mean, that just seems to me more probable than him blowing up. And at home, it's a little, Dodger Stadium's a different animal at nighttime. So I think we could see a low-scoring game. But saying that, it'll probably be 9-8.
I read a really amusing thing in a column about the Dodgers. Mitch, you read the Houston Mitchell thing. As a matter of fact, you sent it to me. On the days he pitches, there was a rumor this was true here. Well, it's been discovered by the dugout people, the reporters who follow the team every day and are more closely. They had better positioning. It's like the so-called White House press pool. There are a dozen reporters who have 10 times better access to the target than the other 200. On the days he's pitching, Scherzer, you are not allowed to speak to him. You're not allowed to touch him. So I'll tell you what, if Scherzer tells me that, I'm fine. I'm getting out of the way.
Yeah.
Just get out of his way. Leave him alone.
He seems like a tough hombre.
He's a tough hombre. All right. So moving back to Tampa and Boston. Tampa loses tonight. It's over with, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're down 5-0.
Is that what it is? I saw
Huh?
Erod was dealing earlier. He had like 5 strikeouts in a row.
Yep. You don't want to get down 5-0 in a playoff game, and the other guy.
Well, you don't want to get down 5-0 in a playoff game to Boston in Fenway Park.
Did they actually start Colin McHugh with his 16 ERA tonight?
They did, and he did not pitch that badly. I think he gave up a run. But they've given up. It's been more of the people who have been brought in. Colin McHugh didn't pitch long, but he didn't get hammered.
Did any of you see the controversial play between the White Sox and the Astros where Yasmani Grandal got hit by the throw from Yuli Gurriel to home plate? And
I saw it, yeah.
Do you think he tried to get hit? Do you think he tried to get hit by the ball, Mal Powell?
Probably. I liked AJ Brzezinski's commentary because
the AJ Brzezinski, that'd be something Brzezinski would do.
Right. I mean, he said
loose cannon.
I like all the other 2 guys are saying, this and that doesn't look like it. He did it on purpose, and Brzezinski just came out and said, basically said, that's bullshit. I knew Grandal did that on purpose.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Where am I coming from? I thought if a thrown ball hit you, you were out.
Well, I think
is that not correct?
Well, look where he got hit. It was before the 45-foot double line, right? And
okay, what I'm thinking of is sometimes you get called out because an umpire will judge that you blocked a base path or something. I think I have my mind on those 2 critical Trey Turner plays in the World Series a couple of years ago where they had a big row over Turner being called out, supposedly interfering with the ability of the first baseman to catch the ball.
My understanding from my old umpiring days, and I may be wrong, is that the runner, when unobstructed by a fielder, creates the baseline. Okay, and then once the baseline is created from where he's starting directly to the next base, that's the baseline, and they use that for when he attempts to leave the baseline in the event of a tag play along those lines. So I think what happened there, and I think they even commented on it, was he established his baseline when he ran out of the box, which was 2 feet into the grass. But either he's heads up or he just kind of wandered over there.
You're right. Yeah, I'm with you.
I think it'd be interesting to take a look at. I mean, I'm really, overanalyzing this kind of a dork, but let's get some film out of what his normal base path is when he's leaving, line of attack to first base is when he leaves the batter's box. Is this normal for him, or?
It did not look normal to me, Mel Powell.
It did not. Grandal's a pretty heady guy from all accounts.
Well, and he's a catcher.
And he's a catcher, I was going to say. So
he's a catcher. So if anybody would understand the rules on running from home plate to first base without obstructing the catcher or the first baseman, it would be Grandal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a great point. Because he's probably had to deal with that play a million times, either in practice, warm-up, spring training, or during the game.
Well, we talked about this. We talked about this.
Did you say that game was incomplete or rained out today?
No, they never started it. You got terrible weather in the Chicago area today.
Oh, there's terrible weather all over the Midwest. Watch the story in the news about Southwest Airlines if you want to hear about weather. It's not all weather. There are other factors. The airlines, this has nothing to do with baseball, but the airlines are really struggling with vaccine issues.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. The White Sox pitching starting rotation has been exposed.
Yes.
And we were suspicious last week. I think we all pretty much had consensus agreement that the White Sox pitching rotation was a little suspect. And hell, even Dylan Cease got hit. I mean, they
Who
haven't.
was supposed
Huh?
who was supposed to start today in the game that didn't play?
Rodon.
You know?
It was going to be
Who?
Rodon against
Rodon?
McCullers.
Yes, Larissa was reluctant to go with Rodon because he has a notoriously shaky arm, but apparently was ready to go with Rodon and have somebody ready to come in after 3 or 4 innings. Rodon is terrific when he's healthy, but he has had a long range of arm issues.
I don't like. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think what's fascinating about the rainout today was that it really helps both teams because McCullers gets an extra day of rest if he was going today. And the White Sox get a much needed extra day of rest for their bullpen because I think you're alluding, Rodon is fantastic, but this is game 4 and the White Sox are on another, winner, you're out. So Rodon has not been healthy, but if they can get 4 or 5 innings out of him in a dominating performance, which he's pretty much been all year, he's been dominating for 4 or 5 innings. Then they can get to their bullpen, Kopech, Bummer.
Well, it also helps.
It
helps them because they used both Kimbrel and Hendrick last night, so it helps them in that respect too.
Right. I think it would have been interesting if they went today. What their bullpen has worked a lot this series,
right? And
what they would have done. So I think it helps the White Sox a ton, and also helps the Astros a little, because McCullers gets that extra day.
So, Mitch is on the mark. Their starting rotation has been overrated, apparently.
Well, I think they performed acceptably well for a major part of the season. But recency bias, like I said last week, Lance Lynn has been getting kicked around pretty badly the last 4 or 5 weeks.
And Giolito was erratic this year.
The what?
Giolito was erratic this year.
Giolito is not getting it done. But what amazes me is they're not rolling out Keuchel.
Well, he's been not erratic. He's been just plain ineffective for many months.
Yeah.
Lynn is that I was watching. I think they were talking. Lynn's had a terrible couple years against the Astros as well. It's like his most difficult matchup. So
really?
Yeah.
So this is nothing new with Houston.
Malpel, you make a great point. That's a matchup problem. Lynn does not pitch well against Houston. Excellent point.
I don't have the numbers, but I read somewhere where it's like he's got over a 6 ERA.
So let's do a couple of hypotheticals. Let's say the Dodgers face Atlanta in the NLCS. It's pretty evenly matched. The home field advantage would be Los Angeles. And why?
No, it would be Atlanta. They're a division winner, and the Dodgers are a wild card.
You're correct. I stand corrected. So if the Dodgers end up facing Atlanta in a 7-game series, and the first 2 and the last 2 are in Atlanta, I think that's a heck of a damn
advantage.
Braves, right?
Yes.
All right.
Remind me of who the Braves' first pitcher was in this series.
Their first pitcher in the series was
Charlie Morton.
Charlie Morton.
Yeah.
Who is not the number 1 starter in the rotation, and they rolled him in number 1 ahead of Max.
That was not a statement in any way other than
Fried pitched more recently.
Fried would have been pitching on less rest. That's why that happened.
I think the key to that's.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Atlanta has to have everything go right in that series to win, and that includes. I mean, they got 3 good pitchers. I think Morton and
Anderson and Fried are solid.
Fried and Anderson are solid. I worry about. I mean, I think Ian Anderson's going to be a fantastic pro.
I agree.
He was one of my pick clicks at the beginning of the year. He got hurt. He's a rookie, and
Right.
and that's going to be tough. These Dodgers pitchers are just loaded with experience, and I think that gives them a leg up if that was the matchup.
Yeah, you raised a point about something that's very hard to quantify, and that's previous playoff experience. It's not just the amount of experience, but it's playoff experience. Now, Charlie
Well, I
Martin
thought
said,
that about Anderson last season, and Anderson pitches beautifully for a man who's had practically no playoff
well,
experience.
he was a rookie last year.
He was a rookie last year, technically.
As far as Atlanta went, he pitched a couple of strong starts in the postseason last year.
Let me throw another hypothetical. It looks like probabilities. It'll be Boston against Houston. Who do you like in that matchup? And who does a home field advantage? Must be Houston because they won the division, correct?
That's right.
Who do you like in a matchup of a 7-game matchup of Boston versus Houston?
Go ahead, Malpel.
That would be a great series.
I think you're right. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
I think I would lean Astros.
Yeah, I agree.
But
we're supposed to argue from some time, but I can't argue just to argue because if I agree with you, I agree with you, and I think you're.
Well, I can make an easy argument for the Red Sox. Go ahead.
Well, I would make only one argument based on too little evidence. But the love bug has kissed the Boston Red Sox, and they might actually be ready to go on a roll. That's the only thing I think would allow them to win this series.
Right.
Do they have the bullpen? I don't think they have the bullpen to compete in 7 games.
I think both pitching staffs are susceptible. Houston's got a deep
The Astros have a better bullpen than the Red Sox.
I think so. Yeah.
If it's a series resolved after the 6th inning, then you got to favor Houston for sure.
Go ahead, Malpal.
I was just gonna say that I think Cora is kind of an intangible over Baker. I think Cora's a fantastic manager. He always seems to push the right buttons, and gets the most out of these guys in crunch time. He did it.
Here's the one big advantage Houston has. Presley is a finisher. Presley is a closer, and he's better than anybody Boston's going to close with. So that's an advantage, too.
Some knucklehead on the White Sox accused the Astros of stealing signs again.
I can't believe they would be dumb enough to do that again.
All that does, even if it's true, is fire up the opposition and give them a call.
There you go.
Kind of stupid, don't you think?
There you go.
I'm a White Sox fan, but I think it'd be a great series, the Astros and the Red Sox.
I agree with
you. Watching it. I want the White Sox to win, but
I've been rooting for the White Sox all the way in the American League because I think they're a great story. But I think they need a little more polish, a little more experience or whatever. It just doesn't look like they're quite ready for prime time, Mel Pal. You know,
They're missing something, and I don't know what it is.
They've made prime time, but they're not going to get an Emmy.
I'll tell you what, that crowd was great in
Really?
whatever the name of that, Gary. What's the name of that ballpark? I can't remember.
Is it Lone Rate Field or something like that?
I don't know. It doesn't make any difference.
Bank Rate Field.
Well, I sent you guys an article this afternoon. I know it was lengthy, very lengthy. MLB is testing ways to fix baseball's boredom problem. I had issue number one I had was, is baseball boring? No,
Not to me. Not to me. Bro, let me make a linear point. We're lifers and we're baseball purists. And most older baseball fans are baseball purists. But when you do an analysis, as whoever it was that offered this up, it describes the steps baseball is taking to make the game less boring. I don't find it boring. I find, I don't know, the combination of an adult beverage and the methodical contemplation of baseball strategy. I find it perfectly fine, but younger people apparently not. Let's hurry up and start. So this is why these experiments are being conducted. I think the Atlantic League is sort of semi-pro, isn't it? It's independent. It's no team in the Atlantic League is affiliated with a major league team. Is that correct?
It's independent and the players are not unionized. Mal Pal, let me ask you the question. Is baseball boring?
I think it's for someone like us, it's clearly not. But I think for your average person in their 20s who has not really been exposed to baseball as a youth or in high school, yes. And I think it's all. I think when no one talks about it's all relative.
But it's age related. I think you're onto something there. Yeah.
The other thing I've never really. I was going to say the other thing that I've never really heard anyone talk about, you know, and it's our age and that. But when we were kind of growing up in the 70s and 80s, watching it, football back then was not what it is now. It's TV it has brought football. It's high action, and you know, the violence and all that and basketball is fast action. But back in the day, they did not have the exposure. It was like it does now with the TV and on just about every day. And
is baseball overexposed?
Well, I think baseball is overexposed, but the game I don't see the game has really changed. I think the other games have changed and surpassed it because of the media exposure and because of the aggressiveness and the fast play, but back in the day when I was 12 years old, I'd get to watch Ron Santo, Johnny Bench, and that was more exciting than watching, you know, Bobby Douglas, Johnny Unitas, Dan Fouts. Because that was one day a week. You watch it and you kind of, you know, forget about it. But that's not the case anymore. Football's done a fantastic job, like it or not, of publicizing it, marketing their sport.
Merrill did an excellent. Go ahead, Mal Pal. Let Mal Pal finish his thought there.
No, I think that's just something to consider. Is, you know, baseball does not have a clock. The other teams, the other sport, you know, you can sit down. It's action oriented. Back in the 70s and 80s, football was not available as much as it is now. I think with fantasy football came along, I think that was the biggest problem for baseball. It's being relative. See what I'm saying? Then you got the women involved, the young people involved. why everyone's playing fantasy football. I don't, but everyone's playing fantasy football. It's short,
Right.
it's action, it's once a week, and that's what the expectation is now. It's like, well, I don't want to watch baseball; it's boring. But it's really been the same, where it was super popular back in the 70s and 80s. So
I agree. I don't find it. I think the games are too long. But Merle had an excellent analysis or analogy, maybe is a better word. Tell everybody what you told me in the
Yes, I gave this some thought earlier today, and I think what I'm about to address here is a pan to the changing nature of the sports fan, the generational divide, and fans such as ourselves have different proclivities about following the sport of our love. So the one commonality, I can't speak to hockey because I don't think the thread extends to the National Hockey League. But in baseball, MLB, the National Football League, and the National Basketball Association, in recent years, there has been such heavy stress on giving the fans more and more offense as opposed to defense, no matter how you wrangle it, whatever you have to do to change it. I don't know how they get crowds for soccer, because if you're going out for sports because you want to see scoring and whatever the venue of scoring is, you're not going to see it much in soccer. But what the Lords of Baseball have done to basically dull up the game as I call in-motion entity, people running and hustling and moving with doubles and triples and stolen bases, drag bunts, small ball, manufacturing runs. What baseball has apparently done in what would seem to be a wild-eyed but naive attempt to put more offense in the game, mostly more home run or bust. The people who run the game basically follow a pattern established earlier, or maybe even evenly in the Time Chronicle by the National Football League, which has been doing more to instill football's version of long balls. Ergo, the Hail Mary that Jameis Winston completed against the Washington football team yesterday, de-emphasizing the grinded out, more methodical ground game in football, which I liken to small ball and baseball. So now the air game dominates football at all levels, and the quarterback is the most valued player on the football team. Not as it were in the era of Jim Brown, but the quarterback is now the most valued player on the team. The running backs are slighted. It's difficult to get a big contact if you're a running back because they play in the football version of small ball, rushing the ball, 3 yards to the carry, eating up the clock. And the homer or bust value by management assumes the typical fans would be more than willing to forego 3 or 4 innings of a 9-inning game in which the team they're watching is scoring a run or 2 or something, or stealing bases, getting doubles and triples, in favor of the dramatic home run, 3-run home run. I call it the Earl Weaver strategy. Let's sit still in the dugout and wait for 3-run home runs. Is it only baseball? Is it only football? The National Basketball Association has moved globally from the days of the Dean Smith 4-corner offense at the University of North Carolina. We all disliked it. We disliked it because he would line up the players at 4 post positions and they would throw the ball around and make the other team so just uncomfortable and so nervous and so angry that he would win games 32-22. And so the NCAA could not tolerate that because that was too little offense. So let me put you in this image in the rearview mirror of where we are now. Where we are now, particularly in the NBA, is that hardly any given score, definition of it, somebody making a basket, holds any special allure for a sports fan, particularly on TV, because you have the opposite of the soccer phenomenon. You have scoring every 30 seconds, so how big a deal is it? Tune in a game in the NBA with 6.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you're probably going to enjoy it just as much as dedicating 3 hours or 2.5 hours to the game.
Okay. So I agree, and I actually find the NBA to be boring, and I like the NBA playoffs because
they play defense, Mitch.
that's where I'm headed with this. In the NBA playoffs, it looks to me like they play defense. But one of the things is I agree with Malpal's conclusion. Whether you consider it boring or not is age related, and people who are younger are used to TikTok, they're used to Instagram, they're used to seeing action in small chapters. They don't even want to watch long TV series. And for them, it's boring. So some of the things they did with this Atlantic League, for example, and they've been doing this since 2019. I put in the notes to you that the games were about, say 2 hours and 45 minutes. And now the games are much longer. They're saying the games are 3 hours and 20 minutes, but aren't a lot of these games 4 hours?
I don't think most of them are 4 hours. The extra inning games are.
I've seen 9-hour games go 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Well, listen, I want to say, I said this the other night. Rules changes aimed at speeding up the game, I favor. What I'm opposed to is changing the game in a way in which, as the article, the analysis that I read on this issue with the Atlantic League, is too many games involve a hitter hits a home run or strikes out or walks, and there's 4 minutes of time that elapses, roughly 4 minutes of time elapses between the time the pitcher throws the first pitch to a hitter and the hitter, there's some kind of outcome to that at bat.
In 1980, one of every, what am I hearing scratching?
We got this the other night. I don't get that.
That might be me on my headphone. Let me sign off and then come back in.
You think that's what
it's just okay, go ahead.
Okay, Malpal, we can live with it. You don't have to sign off. In 1980, one trip to the plate for every 8 trips ended in a strikeout. Today, there's a strikeout in about every 4 trips to the plate. The time between batted balls has reached an average of about 4 minutes. What do we mean time between batted balls?
Well, it's time basically.
What are they driving at?
They're driving at what I'm talking about with this game between Tampa and Boston earlier tonight. Who was a former Pittsburgh player I cited, fouling off 16 pitches. It's time spent when there's no interaction except between the pitcher and the catcher and the hitter. Austin Meadows was at the plate for 5 minutes.
Go ahead, Mal.
17 pitches.
17.
I said, yeah, that Meadows at bat was 17 pitches.
Right.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, the good thing, as I indicated, if you want your hitters to run up the opposition pitcher's pitch count, it's a bad thing if you're an unsettled and younger fan who's gotten bored to death by it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll speak to that. It's interesting you say that because my daughter's over here and we were just kind of watching the game, and she likes to watch the playoffs. She's kind of a baseball fan for obvious reasons, because she's lived it for 22 years.
Yeah.
But
Right.
so she was just watching, and then that at bat, she said something. So that bat, it kind of got boring. But then about the 12th pitch,
exciting.
it got her attention though. After the 12th, and it became like a big deal. Like, this thing's going on forever. This is pretty cool,
right?
So I don't know.
Well, I think if you're a real fan, you kind of like these standoffs between the pitcher and the hitter. It's kind of baseball in its purest form. Because it's one-on-one, and you're frustrating the pitcher who can't get you out, but you're also not hitting the ball anywhere. But you're staying in the box.
Yeah.
So at any rate, one of the things they did in the Atlantic League was move the pitching rubber back 1 foot. What's the purpose in that?
I can help you with that.
Velocity.
Oh, actually,
let me let Malpal finish. Has the velocity increased over the last 10 years?
No.
Yes.
In Major League Baseball?
Yes.
Or I imagine it has.
I'm sorry. Yes.
I think the velocity has increased, but I don't have data to show to you. But I don't remember as many pitchers throwing pitches between 95 and 100. And I certainly don't remember them. I've been a fan a long time. I don't remember them pitching, out of 80 pitches, 60 of them are over 95 miles per hour. I don't ever remember that when I was growing up.
May I help you with this? This comes from the same lovable gang in an effort to get more offense into the game. Same as protecting the quarterback to extremes that are almost ridiculous in football. The same as running transition basketball instead of set up and pass the ball around and make play basketball. This comes from the same people who lowered the pitching mound a few years ago by 6 inches. This is another attempt to lure and to keep and retain the fan base you have by scoring runs. It's rampant in professional sports. You want offense, or whoever are the people in control, the team owners and the league administrators, they want offense because I guess evidence shows them without qualification that fans want to see things happening and a lot of scoring, no matter whatever sport. If you move the mound back even 1 foot, I think the thinking is even 1 foot. I can't imagine that it would make that much difference. But if you move the mound back to 61 feet and 6 inches, somebody somewhere in the back rooms of Major League Baseball, somebody somewhere thinks that might stimulate more hitting and give another benefit to the batter.
I got something.
It's hard for me to imagine pitchers who can throw 100 miles an hour. It's hard to imagine me that standing 1 foot further away from the plate would matter.
I think it'll make a big difference. Go ahead, Malpal. I think 1 foot.
Yeah, they got to go through a whole union. That's a whole union issue there. I doubt that.
It'll be part of the collective bargaining.
But I think I'll just say this. I think these owners and the league have to decide what they want. They're so hypocritical. They're so inconsistent. They complain about lack of runs. They complain about too much time. They complain that there's not enough power. Then they say there's too much power, too much reliance on the home run. Look, these guys, couple things. These owners, the sabermetric thing, I think, has really caused a change in baseball
It
of
has.
scoring.
It has.
The technology has changed a lot, mostly in favor of the pitching with all these spin rate things, which they can dial into now and study. But here's the thing that gets me about these owners. They complain about sabermetrics as is outlined in that article about, decreasing the runs and the excitement and more. The baseball's turned into a home run and a walk, kind of a money ball thing. They complain about it, right? But then what do they do? The big thing in this decade is all these general managers, a lot of them are hired with zero baseball experience. They're these Ivy League guys. They're these mathematicians. And what do? They want them. They don't want to put in managers who won't accept sabermetrics, right?
And a lot of the managers
So they complain about right. But they complain about all this, but then they engage the same thing they're complaining about, and they engage in it. See what I'm saying? They hire these guys from the Ivy League, Cornell, Harvard, to be their general managers because they want to dig down in the sabermetrics, and then they complain about the shift is ruining the game. Too many guys are going for launch angles, and they're learning to take pitches and get on base. So they have to make up their mind what they want out of baseball.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. The thing is,
I think it's the typical owners of this that they've been fighting this. They don't know what they're doing. These guys, this is Roundtable, right? These owners are clowns. Most of these guys,
they're not baseball people, pal.
They're not. Most of these guys are business. They're
mostly billionaires. They take this on like a hobby.
Correct.
They take this on almost, huh?
Yeah, and then the other, remember what's funny is, after the strike and then after the '94 strike, baseball was bad for 3 years until '98. And what happened in '98? Sosa, McGuire, Bonds, right? It brought back the game because of the home run.
And you don't think the suits were complicit in that baseball that was spiked up 2 years or 3 years ago?
2019.
Well, even more ridiculous, back in '98, they put a damn guy that promoted the steroids. They put him in the Hall of Fame, Bud Selig. So
yeah, and let me ask you this:
these guys are just clowns, in my opinion.
There was such a stench when they decided to inspect the pitcher's gloves. How many pitchers have been cited for adding substance to the? And I read an article about the flying squirrels. The pitching coach was interviewed in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, and he described the process they were doing at the flying squirrels in Richmond to scuff up the baseballs. He said they all look dirty. He said they look dirty because we're out there scuffing the balls up to help the pitchers get a grip on them. He said that right in the interview.
And who was encouraging them to do it?
The people who run baseball. This is another effort to get more and more hitting in the game.
No, actually, that's not true because when you scuff up the ball, it helps the spin rate. Actually, to scuff up the ball helps.
No, it's not the fact that they were scuffing up the ball. It's that Major League Baseball started wanting to inspect pitchers to see if they've.
And how many have they? And how many have
they faced the front of a baseball to get an advantage?
Do you think all the pitchers just stopped?
I think it was much. I think it was much ado about nothing. But I think it's further evidence that baseball will tilt and manipulate
these guys.
Whatever rule changes there are to favor the production of more runs and more home runs.
Do you think these pitchers using substance or scuffing the ball did that on their own without their management, their pitching coaches encouraging it? Of course they did. And then when the average batting average was 212 in May, then all of a sudden baseball feels like they got to come and solve it. These guys are clowns. These owners are terrible. They need to figure out what they
2-car funeral percent. I watched Greinke last night, and between every pitch, he goes.
Scherzer does that.
Yeah,
Scherzer does that.
What is that?
I think it's to wet your fingertips for putting it on the baseball.
Does wetting your fingertips with your saliva help your grip or hurt your grip?
It makes the ball go jerky, herky, jumpy, and lumpy.
I think it depends on the weather. But you notice at the end of that inning, they cut away from it. They checked Greinke's glove. They caught it for a split second. They called the first base umpire, called him over to first base when he was leaving the field.
Oh, really?
So they're checked. Yeah, but they didn't do anything. But no one caught it. It was real quick.
Can I do a shout out to the TV networks, which I don't do very often because I have a lot of faults. They could probably have legitimate faults with me. They have not gone overboard and particularly hyped this, I guess, every 3 innings or whatever, at the baseline or the first baseline inspection of pitchers, and I'm delighted. I don't want to see that every game. Now, if a pitcher gets ejected from the game, that's a game story. That's different. But the routine examination of pitchers, if they want to put it in, put it in. But the networks have not preoccupied themselves with delaying commercial breaks or anything else to cover that.
What are they going to do next? What are they going to do next then? They get a measuring tape and measure pine tar on a guy's bat after every at bat?
I guess. Here's some of the tweaks they did in the Atlantic League. Letting batters steal first base. How do you steal first base?
I was hoping one of you could tell me what that means.
Merle,
I can do that. I can do that.
We talked about it this afternoon.
I can do that. I don't know why they're proposing a rule. There already is in baseball an established attempt to steal base defined as striking out on a wild pitch and then running like hell to first base to see if you can beat the catcher's throw there. That's the only definition I can come up with whether somebody would talk about stealing first base. But as I said to Mitch earlier today, that probably applies to 1 out of every 10 hitters. Usually somebody who strikes out swinging on a bad pitch is turning around and he's frustrated and he's angry and doesn't even know where the ball is.
Okay, I've had more time to think about that, Merle, since we talked about that.
Okay.
And I think what they're driving, you are right. You're correct. You've always been able to head out the first base on strike 3 if it's a pass ball.
Right.
You've always been able to do that. But now I think what they're talking about is if there is a ball that bounces off the catcher's mitt on strike 1, you can head to first base. That's what I think they're talking about.
Oh, that would explain it. Good catch.
Don't you have a lot of pitches that are before?
Well, we saw the other night, you and I noted that the Dodger catcher, Will Smith, who's a really good hitter, cannot block pitches. You're right. That would explain, if you're talking about changing rules, that a hitter could take off on any wild pitch.
That's what I'm driving at. You see many balls. You see many balls, particularly from a pitcher who is throwing certain pitches that are bouncing in front of the plate. I think what they're driving at is anytime a ball is in any way muffed, you can haul ass to first base. I think that's what
I'm not sure. I'm pretty certain I would support that kind of change because it puts back into the game what I like, a form of small ball and a form of excitement. The base runner is, the hitter is running like, as you say, running like hell to first base. This would broaden the opportunity for you to do it other than just doing it on a strike 3 pitch.
Something else they did in the Atlantic League was make the bases bigger. What the hell does that do?
Easier to find with your foot and less likely to catch a base runner and the first, second, or third baseman or whatever, the shortstop covering second base from cracking each other's ankles and stepping on their feet. I don't know how much it would do to provide any more offense in the game.
You think it's a safety thing?
I do.
What do you think, Mel Pal?
Probably where they make it a couple inches bigger. I was going to go back. You know this. I know someone, or Merrill or Mitch, was kind of in favor, intrigued by the stealing first base. Isn't that kind of equivalent to football, where a pass goes incomplete, but if the defender picks up the ball, you can run it back for a touchdown?
Not on an incompletion, on a
No, he's not saying you can do that now. What he's saying is this would be equivalent to letting a defender pick up an incompleted pass and take off. Right?
Expertly misunderstood. Sorry, Matt Pell, that's expertly stated on your part. That's exactly what I think it is. Exactly.
Right.
If a pitcher, if a pitcher, you lose the catcher, you're free to run anytime you want.
You might just burn the record books then, I guess.
Right.
Haven't they already limited visits to the mound?
Yes.
How many visits to the mound can you
How's
do?
that working out?
You can get 3 visits to the mound, no more.
The fact of the matter is the average length of we talked about this last week. All these tweaks they've made, one could argue, have been canceled out by instant replay. That's Mitch. That's my argument.
Yeah.
They've made these tweaks to help speed the game up, and now every time you turn around, they're stopping and watching a video from Secaucus, New Jersey, to decide whether to call somebody out at second base or not.
There's way too much of that. They've totally overdone that.
All right, let's move on to the next one. The automated ball strike system, sometimes known as a robot.
I'm in favor of it.
Why?
Because too many mistakes are made. I've seen in these playoff games, I understand umpires are human. I understand you can get to a point where you let AI overtake B or MLB or NFL or BKB or NHL. But there are too many instances in baseball where the game is delayed, sometimes up to 5 minutes, because somebody stole second base and it looked close.
I used to teach logistics engineering for Florida Institute of Technology. Let me tell you one of the best engineering principles that I am aware of. Perfect is the enemy of good.
Yeah.
I repeat, perfect is the enemy of good. And it looks to me like you've seen on these broadcasts now, they throw up this schematic of home plate and then make a fool of the umpire because the umpire calls a strike, and you can see right on the picture that the ball's not in the strike zone, or vice versa. He calls it a ball and it's in the strike zone. I don't know how they. I guess you can't.
Well, if I'm a Major League Baseball umpire, I would really resent that. To be honest about it.
Have you heard anything about the umpires union bitching about it?
No, because they also draw their living and earn their beat and get their wheat and get their supplicants from the people they work for, and they don't want to make trouble over it.
Go ahead, Mal, pal.
Hello?
Yeah, I said go ahead. You were
Okay.
getting ready.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I read somewhere where the really good umpires are like 92, 93% on
Right,
called pitches.
right.
Are we going to get, based on reading that article of the Atlantic League, they were having some problems with that automatic, the computer strike zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
If we're gonna, are we really trying? We're gonna throw out umpires because to try and improve 7% on 250 pitches that are thrown in a baseball game.
That's an illustration of perfect being the enemy of good.
Yeah.
Some of the reports that I have read claim that even if you put a robot, you're going to need to have an umpire behind home plate. And why?
Right. So
there are things that
if
robot can't see. Okay. That's my problem with automated cars, with all this bullshit that you're going to have all these cars with no people driving them, and you can have damn vision problems and have 1040 vision and see in your peripheral vision better than a lot of these computers can. Okay, and you can react. You can react to contingencies faster than a many computers can. But at any rate, you're saying
the NFL.
Go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. NFL is like the most popular sport, right? Hands down right now.
They claim. I don't even.
Got some bad.
You know why I don't agree with?
But
you know why I don't agree with that, Pal? They play one friggin' game a week. How many games a week do baseball teams play?
Right, but okay. I understand that, but they get tremendous ratings on Sundays. It seems to be like more popular than baseball.
It's better on TV. They get better TV ratings.
Right. Okay, and the officials in the NFL are terrible, and it's very arbitrary and subjective, especially like holding calls, because all of a sudden holding calls go away in the Super Bowl, but then they're calling them every third play. You can call
holding on every play from scrimmage. It's the dumbest play. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. When you're doing your job as a lineman, you're holding, huh?
Right. So my point is on this is NFL is very exciting to most people. It's very, very popular, and no one's talking about computerizing the NFL referees so that they get better. So I'm saying, is baseball gets computerized umpires? Is it really going to improve the game? Really?
No.
I mean, this is the thing I'm talking about. Owners, they just like they throw this crap out there. Is it really going to improve the game? The most exciting play, I would argue, especially when I was a kid watching this stuff, the most exciting play in the game was Earl Weaver going out and yelling at the umpire.
Well, that's why I don't like the instant replay. I like
picking up bases, throwing them.
Well, how about Lou Piniella and all those guys? I miss that. That was part of the fun.
Right.
Well, look, we all have to fess up and admit that probably slowed the game down to have them come out.
It was great.
But it was entertaining. And it's a lot more entertaining than watching them standing in a huddle listening to the people in Secaucus, New Jersey. Here,
Malpel, if we get a computer, if we bring computer to baseball, it'll be somebody for call base for balls and strikes. You will have to have human beings managing along the lines and in the infield. But I only relish this in one really comical respect. The first time a batter gets really hot under the collar, the robot has made whatever noise that robot's going to make, and he turns around and slugs it.
I want to see a manager come out with a bat and just smash the computer, and just like go up against the plate and the net. It's probably going to be placed on the net behind the plate. Just go down with a bat, just walk over there. Maybe something like Alan McRae would have done. I don't know if you remember.
Well, digging up,
start pounding the
digging up the second base bag and brandishing it in the face of the umpire now will be replaced by a manager running out there and brandishing his iPad in front of the umpire.
Why are there fewer
I mean,
balls? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no!
Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say they turned the manager in baseball into like a PGA golfer. You know, they're just stoic, they just sit there, no personality, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Well, what
Anyways,
is the
Go ahead.
What the thing that gets me in football is you can't tackle a quarterback. You can damn near not tackle a quarterback anymore. Period.
That's right.
You're right to the
Yeah.
point where you almost cannot tackle a quarterback. Period.
That's right.
So, why are there fewer balls in play?
Because people are either, in too many cases, walking or striking out or hitting home runs.
Or
And
when they hit a
all
ground
the other things that can happen while you're standing at the plate with a bat. I think if you check the statistics, doubles and triples and gappers and all of this, I think all of those are in declining numbers.
How many ground balls are making it through the infield since we instituted the shift?
A lot fewer, but I don't know the number.
Right.
I'm guessing the Sabermetrics would say something along the lines of, you can score 2 runs with a walk and a home run. In order to score 2 runs without a walk or a home run, you need probably on average 4 hits without making 3 outs.
Yeah. You get a single, the guy hits a double, and you end up staying at third if you got a good outfielder. Then you need another single. That would bring in 2 runs, I guess.
Well, what's not exciting about that? I think that's one of the arguments here. They've taken it away from the game.
I agree with you. I'm just making the point. I'm guessing. I don't know this for a fact.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right, Mel.
Yeah, let him finish. Go ahead, Mel, pal.
I was just going to say, I think we're in agreement, is that the Sabermetric people are probably thinking, I get a walk and a home run, I get 2 runs, rather than having 3 or 4 hits before you get 3 outs, which is against 9 guys throwing 98 into a shift is problematic.
Well, let me ask you this then. Why don't they just pitch to contact? Why don't they pitch to contact and forget the strikeouts then? Don't you have some pitchers who deliberately pitch to contact?
Yeah, but aren't they fewer and fewer? I mean, these guys, these starting pitchers go like 5 innings, and then they bring these guys out of the bullpen. Do any of them throw less than 98 coming out of the bullpen? That's why you have a lot of strikeouts. You know?
Yeah, you have caused me now to think about the contribution of the growing professionalism and expansion in utilization of relief pitchers. Probably has as much to do with lower scoring as anything, because you're right. The pitchers, the standard was 7 innings, maybe 8 innings. Now you're rolling out a new pitcher every inning in a lot of games.
Do you remember the excitement? Do you remember the excitement when Billy Wagner came in and threw 98 miles an hour?
Oh, yeah.
99, and once in a while he'd hit 100, and people would just stop what they're doing to watch. Now that's like a normal guy coming out of the bullpen.
Here, I will close tonight with one last indictment of Sabermetrics. And I know we all play fantasy baseball. I look at weighted on base average. I'll look at XFIP. I look at all that crap. Okay. Let me give you an example. Last year, when the Tampa manager pulled Blake Snell, because the cybermetricians, I guess is what you call them, the statisticians had that guy convinced that Snell could not pitch more than 6 innings. He was unhittable. Okay. Blake Snell was unhittable. And didn't he take him out after one base hit or something
Right.
like that?
Yeah.
And that's because they're
Guys
collecting
in the World
data.
Series against the Dodgers, right?
What's that? Against the Dodgers in the World Series. The managers are being told
Yeah.
to be
Right.
data
Good
driven.
point.
If the data tells you that Malpal's pattern is the third time he goes through the lineup, he gets racked. They get that in their front of their brain, and Malpal's thrown a no-hitter for 6 innings, but oh my, it's a 7th inning, and we know Malpal has a history of getting hit on the third time they hit it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull him and put Joe Shit the Ragman in, who hasn't been worth a damn, and see what he can do. I mean, it was ridiculous. The other example was when they pulled Greinke. I still say to this day, and that was 2 years ago, if AJ Hinch doesn't pull Greinke, Houston wins that World Series, not Washington.
Mitch, are there people, if everybody left, before we sign off, are there people in the chat room we need to acknowledge?
I've been in there, and it was Lenny and it was Andrea. And let me look real quick. I don't see anybody else. No, so that's
Well,
fine.
thank you very much, Lenny and Andrea. Appreciate it.
Malpal, thank you, sir, for being with us. Appreciate it. And it's 9:30, 6:30 your time, so we'll call it a night.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks
go
for
ahead,
the
Malpal.
invite. Thanks for the
You got
invite.
any
It's
alibis?
always fun.
Tampa's crawled back into the game at 5-3.
That's right.
Wander Franco
Yeah,
is a 2-run home run.
Boston bullpen is no gimme.
Yeah.
That's right.
John Rudin has resigned as the coach of the Las Vegas Raiders for something
Really?
he said 10 years ago.
No kidding.
Don't get
Yeah.
me started on that.
Something he said 10 years ago. Who among us has never said anything that you possibly would not want advertised? Just give it a rest, please. This is not something he said last week. This was something he said 10 years ago.
What did he say, or what?
Well, he said
Chris,
You know,
we don't even need to
exactly.
dignify it by repeating it.
it was something construed as homophobic, I guess.
Okay.
No, it was a racist. I'm sorry, racist. He characterized people with a negative stereotype.
Right. Gotcha.
I've never done that before. Have you?
Okay, let's
I've
wave
never
goodbye.
stereotyped anybody in my life. Come on, you know.
Let's bid a fair adieu for the night.
Okay. All right.
Very
Thanks,
good.
Malpal.
I always learn something.
Well,
Okay,
thank you. We learned
thank
from
you, Malpal.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay. We'll talk to you guys. Bye.